Good morning, eminent dignitaries, participants of the academic fraternity, research scholars, participants of the program, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya, we welcome all to this COVID-19 to this webinar known as COVID-19 Emergence and Resurgence of Communicable Disease from Social Science Perspectives, organized by School of Social Science and Humanities, USTM, in association with Indian Sociological Society, Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi, Department of Humanities and Social Science, IIT Guwahati, FLAIR, and TRIBAC. The seminar will tend to discuss the issues, agendas in this testing time for a need for global governance on key issues to improve systems of prevention, control, and treatment, simultaneously giving attention on the infectious disease burden of policy decisions taken in sectors like trade and investment, agriculture, migration, transportation, communication, etc. We have actually today we are really indeed honored. We have a galaxy of distinguished icons from the academic fraternity. I would like to just say a few words on their names. We have with us today Professor Sharma sir. He is an LSK Foundation Chair Professor of Political Science and Associate Vice President, Academic Quality Assurance and Internationalization, and Professor of Politics at the University of San Francisco, USA. We have with us Professor T.G. Sitaram, Honorable Director, IIT Guwahati. We have with us Professor Raj Bhandari, Honorable Member, National Technical Board of Nutrition and Health Government of India. We have with us Professor Abdul Mannan sir, Honorable Former Chairman, University Grand Commission, Republic of Bangladesh. We are also honored to have with us Professor P.C. Joshi, Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, University of Delhi, India. We have with us Professor Abdul Matin, Honorable President, FLAIR, Delhi, and also former Chairperson, Department of Sociology, AMU. We have with us our own Honorable Chancellor of University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya, and Chairman ERDF, Mahbubul Haque, and Professor Middle Hazarika, Honorable Vice Chancellor, University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya. Along with that, we have a host of other guests also in the coming sessions. Before we go further, I would like to request Professor Middle Hazarika sir to kindly preside over the program. I would like to hand over the session to him. Dr. Hazarika sir.
Thank you, Mejabin. Thank you very much, and good morning to you all. It's indeed a great pleasure to be in the midst of great scholars and experts here today, particularly at a time when we are having a problem of this COVID-19 pandemic. This is a problem, and when a problem comes, we should take the problem as opportunity, and many opportunities are emerging out of the problems. When the experts like all of you join here, I'm sure new opportunities will emerge again. As far as the battle against infectious diseases is concerned, this can only be fought by the contribution of the social scientists, particularly the infectious disease outbreak. And these particular aspects can only be tackled by the social scientists. Furthermore, the social science generates evidence necessary to control the epidemic. Under that condition, eminent experts like who are here, all have diverse experience in different fields, like Professor P.C. Joshi, who will be delivering the keynote address, Professor Shailendra Sharma, and who will be our chief guest. And along with that, our other Professor Mannan will also be joining. Dr. Bhandari is also here. Dr. Sitaraman will be joining. And it's a great pleasure to be here today. Our Honorable Chancellor who will be welcoming all of you. This is always everything is happening in the university at the behest of Honorable Chancellor, because his initiative and his enthusiasm, his restlessness to do something very unique, always put everybody on the toes and take things forward. And this is why we are here today, and this is a very important program for all of us today. And I'm sure that we will have a very wonderful interaction, and as the time progresses, and at the end of the day we'll become actually wiser and when we close the session. And I'm sure that all of you will, all the participants who are here, more than 100, around 128 participants so far joined, more are expected to join. I'm sure that they will, all of will be greatly benefited by your great deliberations. At the very outset, I would request our Honorable Chancellor, the Mahabubul Haq, to deliver his welcome address before this August gathering.
Good morning to everyone. I welcome all the dignitaries, all the participants to today's International Online Conference on COVID-19, the very relevant topic, emergence and resurgence of communicable disease from social science perspective. You are all eminent dignitaries and great men. We have joined for a program organized by USTM, a very small university started with a humble beginning, and we have nearly completed 6-7 years here in the state of Meghalaya, but very close to Guwahati, near to Khanapada, and from the Guwahati airport it is only 36 kilometers. I feel proud today that many eminent speakers from all over the world and mostly from academia, we have joined for this particular topic. I welcome our esteemed chief guest, Professor Shailendra Sharma, who is representing our country and intellectual fora at University of Francisco, USA. I welcome Dr. Raj Bhandari, Member National Technical Board of Nutrition and Health, Government of India. Professor G. Sitarama, Director IIT Guwahati. Professor Abdul Mannan Sir, former UGC Chairman, Bangladesh. Professor P.C. Joshi, Honorable Pro-Vice Chancellor of University of Delhi. Professor Abdul Matin Sir, the former Chairman of Sociology, Aligarh Muslim University. Our esteemed Vice Chancellor, Dr. Midul Hazarika Sir. And the main architect behind, who is giving the effort from last 2-3 months, Mr. B.I. Lashkar, our senior faculty in the Department of Sociology, all other eminent speakers for the various sessions and participants. You will be happy to know that more than 500 speakers sections of this education and from the industry. They have spoken on various topics, and I have seen that after lockdown we have a huge competition among various departments of our university. We have nearly 21 departments and 200 plus faculty members, and they have organized many webinars on various aspects. And our esteemed Vice Chancellor was telling that we must convert challenges into opportunities. And today we are sitting in an office located in Guwahati, not in Meghalaya. So even the stakeholders, the organizer of the university is also in the virtual platform. Not in the university, we are sitting in an office. Our esteemed VC is sitting in the other room, I am here. And this is something, only demerits of this program that we will not be able to take a cup of tea together. We are utilizing our time very nicely. There will be no lunch session, there is no break session, there is no tea break. So it will be a continuous program and we will be taking the advantage of it. My realization is that our teachers, nearly 80%, they became very IT enabled now. They are becoming very smart. And any time, just with a 10 minutes prior notice, we are organizing various kinds of meetings with the faculty members, department-wise. We have many meetings we have organized with the students even in the Zoom. And students of the intermediate batches, after getting the UGC notice, that there will be no exam for the intermediate batches. So some of the students, and you are all academicians, you are knowing who will be more happy that if there is no exam. It is mostly students, you will find those who are irregular. and those who are doing some netagi in the institutions. I have organized a motivational session, and now 98% students, they are asking for the examination even for the intermediate batches. No objection for the final semester students. It is only few objection from the end. We have done the research work that who are the people they are objecting for a examination. Our teachers, our faculty members have given the extreme effort to complete the syllabus online. So we are not in a position to give the 100% satisfaction, but we took the remedial classes, and now our students are ready to conduct, ready to face the examination. So this is a experience in this pandemic situation that we academic community institutions must come forward, and we have to give a positive message to the society, especially students community. They are nearly 35% of the entire population. They are the students going to the various institutions. And in this pandemic situation, we also close our chapter that there is no class, there is no communication, there is no understanding. Then who will be leading the society? So we from the small university, USTM, we are trying to give the effort in this northeastern part of the country. And many institutions following, they are also following our footsteps, that how we are conducting classes, how students are happy, and they are talking about that we have to submit the assignments. Only demerit is that we have most of the programs are science programs. We could not conduct the practicals. So once institution will be opening, that will be conducting such kind of practicals. So recently we have completed admission in pharmacy. From 27th of July, we are going to start our new sessions. So this is a message in this kind of situation that academician also must come forward, and they have to fight with the corona. And this fight must be in the line of academic activities, so that all activities, our students community, although staying at home, they are not allowed to come out from their houses, but let us engage them. If they are engaging them, staying at their home, I think it will be the big success for the academic community. I welcome all of you, and although there is no tea break and lunch break, but I must invite all of you when there will be a normal situation. You must visit, and especially Professor Sharma, you are representing our country there in US. When you are coming, please visit our institution and encourage us. We have a mission to make our university at least in the global map by next 10 years. We are working in this direction, and we are trying to motivate the very humble faculty, very humble students. We are getting the students, those who are joining in our university, they are not very talented students. Those who are not getting chances to take admission in government universities, central universities, IITs, they are also coming to us. And you will be happy to know that in the last 1 year, we have nearly 87 students qualified NET, and many students qualified GATE. And we have a regular coaching of NET in our campus. So we are trying our level best to come up with the average students to excel in the field of professional area, in the field of academics. So I will be more happy that after this pandemic, there is a ray of hope that everything will be normal. Please, you visit our campus, see our campus, encourage us so that we can also contribute for the betterment of the society. I welcome all of you again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chancellor. And it's a great pleasure to listen to you, particularly when you highlighted during your welcome address the challenges the university is facing at the moment under COVID-19 pandemic situation. And we have been able to confront these challenges, overcome these challenges. And challenges, as I said, come, and we are trying to convert these challenges into opportunities. And that is why we are so far moving in a very steady pace as far as the university is concerned. Anyway, now it's the time to listen to our great scholars. First of all, I'll be inviting Professor Sharma. You are welcome here. Professor Sharma is holding so many hats, and he is the Lee Shaw Foundation Chair Professor of Political Science and Associate Vice President of the Academic Quality Assurance and Internationalization, and Professor Politics of the University of San Francisco, He's a great guest professor of Fudan University, and presently is based in Lingan University, Hong Kong. Am I sounding correctly?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
nice. And he's author of several books. And he is the chief guest today. We are honored to have you, our chief guest, Professor Sharma, and we are keen to listen to your presentation. And welcome, Professor Sharma.
Thank you, sir. Thank you to all the guests. I want to begin by acknowledging my thanks to USTM for organizing this very timely conference. Also, my thanks to the Chancellor and to the Vice Chancellor, and also to Professor Lashkar, who I was in contact with for arranging this conference. I also like to thank all the very distinguished guests and all participants. So it's my great honor and privilege to be here. When I look at the title of the conference, Emergence and Resurgence of Communicable Disease from Social Science Perspective, I'm a political scientist, so I will try to talk about it from that perspective. But before I begin, let me just say one or two words about the emergence and re-emergence. Of course, we know that this is not new, the COVID-19. If you look at the last 20 years, there has been a number of these types of outbreaks, pathogenic outbreaks, such as Ebola, Lassa, West Nile, Nipah, SARS, MERS, Zika, and now coronavirus. So in a sense, the resurgence is not a new thing. This was to be expected, as I will mention later. On the other hand, if there's a positive news is that the traditional communicable diseases, infectious diseases such as cholera, tuberculosis, malaria, smallpox, dengue, typhoid, so many others have generally been under control. But at the same time, we have these new ones. So in one sense, it is not entirely a new phenomenon, the resurgence and the emergence. Regarding from the social science perspective, there is no one social science perspective, as you know. Rather, there are multiple social science perspectives. And when I look at the program for this conference, then you can see a whole range of scholars that are representing different disciplines are presenting. I'm presenting from the perspective of a political scientist, political economist. So my comments will be about what we in our field in political science and political economy are thinking about this disease. I think a couple of points. The first is that there is generally a broad agreement that the rapid spread of this virus has to do with, of course, we live in a global world. Because how can something that began in a small wet market in Wuhan, I had visited Wuhan some time ago, it is sort of in the middle of China, and you have many wet markets all over the place. And so something that began there can spread so very quickly. So it shows us what we have been talking about the interconnectedness of the world from the local, regional, and global. So that is something we can all agree on. But for political scientists, and political economists, the questions that we are today grappling with or trying to address are a couple. First is to deal with the response to the crisis. One of the things we find is the general failure of governments globally, national governments, including public health units, who were simply not adequately prepared, even though there had been enough warnings. Now, in the case of the United States, it is interesting. In the US, there are 16 federal agencies, federal government agencies, and there are numerous state-level agencies that have been set up to deal with such a pandemic. But yet, at the moment when the crisis broke, there seems to be basically policy paralysis. Nothing could happen. So one of the things we see is that even as the size of governments have become bigger, and the different units have grown, there has not necessarily been commensurate improvement in performance. So that has been a puzzle, especially in the United States, where 16 agencies and many more at the local level all were geared to deal with this, And yet when the crisis happened, what happened? So there is going to be some discussion regarding accountability and transparency as to what happened. And in the US, of course, what they will do is set up another committee like happened after 9/11. So that's one issue. The second is also at the international level. And this has surprised a lot of international relations scholars, political scientists, not all, but many. And that is to say, in a world where we have so many agreements, multilateral treaties, organizations, when the globe is so interconnected and we talk about all of these different bodies, but when the crunch happened at the global level, there did not seem to be much international cooperation. Rather, what you begin to see is countries began to hunker down, closing borders. Even if you look at EU is supposed to be the most integrated. And yet at the outbreak of the crisis, borders began to come close, not only of people, it is understandable, but also export control on essential commodities, such as face masks, ventilators. So how did this happen? So these are the two important puzzles of the failure of government and also at the international level. But having said that, there's a lot of complexity. We also have to take into account that a number of governments have been able to mount a fairly effective response to the virus. And especially countries that are in proximity to China, such as Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan. You know, I'm now based in Hong Kong, and in Hong Kong, actually from this university to the mainland border is a 15-minute drive. I can be in Shenzhen in 15 minutes. But Hong Kong had very few cases. What happened here? And if you look at Taiwan, Taiwan is a remarkable case, only 7 cases. And Taiwan is deeply integrated into China. So there has been some countries that have been able to deal with this, manage this crisis far better than many countries. And the question is why? Then there's a third element of the argument that happens largely within the academia and within policy circles. But in the US, one of the questions happened is that, well, especially when the American government was so incapable of actually dealing with the crisis, and you know, in Trump actually ridiculing and saying there was not a problem. China, where the crisis happened, was able to handle it initially. So the question became, well, are democracies not as capable as authoritarian or non-democratic systems in dealing with the crisis? So this became a subject of discussion in the American media, in policy journals like Foreign Affairs, in some of the major outlets. Those were discussion took place. So at the first glance, it seemed to sort of show, yes, democracies did not seem to be very well prepared. You had countries like the United States, then Britain, Italy, Belgium, Spain, and now Brazil and India. I said, well, what happened? Why are these countries not able to handle this? And on the other hand, China, which is the epicenter of the crisis, where it all began, very quickly was able to recover and then began to say, well, things are under control here. So basically my point is that two arguments happen. One is the relations between democracy and authoritarian systems. I would only say this much to it. Here, Professor Amartya Sen's warning is very much to be taken into account, because the picture is not as simple between democracies and authoritarian system. I think what we find is that some democratic countries were able to handle and deal with the problem much better, like Germany, Taiwan, Finland, Norway, New Zealand, South Korea. They have done a good job. I think the most outstanding job is done by Taiwan, but in large part because Taiwan has outstanding healthcare. You know, people from Hong Kong here, they go to Taiwan to get very affordable and excellent care. So Taiwan has very good public health system that is able to address this issue. I think what is also clear is that geographical proximity, as I mentioned, some countries were able to deal with this problem. When you ask the Taiwanese how were they able to deal with it, the answer is very simple. We just didn't believe when the Chinese government said in Beijing that everything is under control. They have a very familiarity, they know. that what happens from Beijing, the information is not necessarily always clear. So immediately when the outbreak was announced, when it became clear, here in Hong Kong, it became clear to us by early January that there was a problem. Even though it had begun in China in December, Taiwan just clubbed right away. Because even when the mainland government was saying, giving them assurance, they still shut down. That is why Beijing was so angry with Taiwan and put pressure on the World Health Organization. I'll talk about it later. I think the story is not very clear is because I think authoritarian governments, while they have been able to address the problem after the crisis happened, because in China, there was a total lockdown. Wuhan was basically locked down. You could not go out of your house. You have to be inside. So that type of centralized control, that is something they can do, and they did it, and they were able to control. But the larger issue is the failure to report. And of course, when China says that the number of deaths from their viruses are low, I don't think anybody fully believes it. So the question between relations between democracy and authoritarianism is much not clear. Generally, I think democracies, no system has done a better job. I think what we find is that some individual countries have done a better job. And these individual countries took the warnings very seriously. They didn't necessarily believe what China was saying, and they had very good public healthcare systems and tracing and tracking and all the things that went with it. And this is how Taiwan was successful. I also want to say a few things about India. I'm not familiar with what's happening specifically, but from somebody from the outside. Because in Hong Kong, when the virus was controlled in India, under control, there was a lot of applause saying, what is the Indian government doing right? Remember, March 18th, all international flights were canceled, and then Prime Minister Modi announced the national curfew lockdown. At that stage, India had only 500 cases, only 100 deaths. So here, there was a lot of talk about, well, what can we learn from India? And then before the problems happened. Then, of course, now we know about the policy errors. Maybe the Indian government has not put enough stimulus money, not enough adequate healthcare support. But I think the consensus, at least from the outside, is the view that the reason the cases in India are now spiking very rapidly is because of the weak public healthcare system. So even though the government was able to control the system well initially, over the long term, it could not be sustained. So that is the view we have of India from the outside. I also want to share some broad political economy implications of this crisis from a social science angle. And I think one that is coming very clear in the world we live in is that there is in the world no alternative to sovereign nation states, that a sovereign nation state is the decisive player in the international system. As I mentioned, despite all the efforts of multilateralism, international organization, international bodies, when it came down to the problem, to this pandemic, it all fell upon individual nation states. And what we find at the global level is a global dysfunction at multilateral institutions. You look at the UN Security Council. The UN Security Council has not been able to even hold a summit, even a virtual summit, how to respond to the pandemic. In large measure because China has been saying that this is not something to be addressed by the Security Council. The same thing with the G20 and the G7 and all of the other international organizations have not been able to address this. They have, when it came down to it, we fell on the support of the nation state. And the same thing could be said about the World Health Organization. You know the story that the United States has cut off funding. There was a lot of anger, but the World Health Organization, like other multilateral organizations, are heavily politicized. Everybody knows it. The current Director General of the WHO got the position largely because of China's backing. Without China's support, he would not get the job. So immediately he became a cheerleader for China. He is the one who singularly isolated Taiwan, that Taiwan, under China's pressure, could not come to the table to talk about how to deal with the crisis. So even international organizations that we had high respect for, like the World Health Organization, is highly political and failed to lead a transparent and effective international response to the virus. So what can we as ordinary people, citizens, depend on? We depend on the whims of our government, how well the government does. In the case of Hong Kong, where I'm based right now, the local government here has done some things right, many things wrong, and in large measure because governments are also, in the business of catch up. How do you deal with this problem effectively? The other implication, I think, is we're going to see with the global economy. And I think going further, we will see greater de-linking, or what scholars call globalization, deglobalization. Trump has already said that, and Trump is not alone. Trump is in a sense a symptom, because many members of Congress are saying that it is because of America's dependence on the supply chain. Because we are dependent on supply chain that is controlled by China, we could not get the enough supply of goods like face masks, ventilators, all of those things. So I think what we're going to see is there is going to be greater focus or push for deglobalization or de-linking. Pandemic has highlighted the risk that is associated with the world's dependence on simply Chinese-made goods. In the United States, it does not really manufacture much. Essential drugs, face masks, ventilators are all imported. So I think that's going to be some changes in the global economy. Finally, today, the big issue for many economists, of course, is how do the governments deal with the dilemma of preserving economic growth, employment, and averting thousands of deaths. If you look at the unemployment numbers, in the United States, it's interesting. The government has announced another $1 trillion of spending, in large measure because Americans are not savers and people live paycheck to paycheck. And if you shut down the economy, the repercussion is going to be very severe. So all of these are issues that we as social scientists will have to deal with that down the road. So these are some of my thoughts about this disease from a political science perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Professor Sharma, thank you very much for your illuminating presentation on the political science perspective as far as the pandemic is concerned. And you have very elaborately or very effectively pointed out how the democracy has failed and authoritarianism has succeeded as far as this is concerned. And anyway, now I would request Dr. Raj Bhandari to make his presentation here. Dr. Bhandari, and he is, just a minute, let me talk something about Dr. Bhandari. Dr. Bhandari is a member of Technical Board of Nutrition and Health Government of India. He is an advisor, Maharashtra Village Social Transformation Foundation, Mumbai. He is a member, International Malnutrition Task Force. He is a chair, Health and Nutrition Committee of Indian Council of Child Welfare, New Delhi. He is a technical advisor, Health and Nutrition Flair, consultant to UNICEF, Plan India. He's by practitioner, his doctor is a practitioner doctor. Well, Dr. Bhandari, you're welcome here, and I would like to request to make your presentation.
Sir, thank you so much. I must really, I'm grateful to Honorable Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor of University of Science and Technology, Meghalaya. Also, Professor Lashkar, Professor Abdul Mateen, and all the faculty members. And thank you, Dr. Shailendra Sharma, for a great introduction to the topic. Well, let me begin. I mean, COVID-19 has been a very defining moment in the history of humanity. And defining, I say, because COVID has fundamentally changed and challenged our belief system and norms and forced us to behave differently. As we entered the 21st century, it seemed all major problems of dealing with infectious diseases have been solved. Control and preventative measures reduced the incidence of infectious diseases, and we were led to believe that our arsenal of new age, modern, potent antibiotics, you have the first generation, the second generation, and the third generation antibiotics, the chemotherapeutic agents, and the safe and efficacious vaccines will be enough to safeguard and ensure longevity and the quality of health care. Well, with a robust health infrastructure comprising of the primary, secondary, tertiary level healthcare that we have in India, our focus shifted to tackling the emerging epidemic of communicable and simultaneously of non-communicable diseases. So the non-communicable diseases, namely the metabolic syndrome, which comprises of cardiovascular diseases, chronic diseases like respiratory ailments, kidney diseases. The metabolic syndrome has, apart from cardiovascular diseases, the diabetes mellitus, hypertension, dyslipidemias, and hypercholesterolemia, and of course, indirectly, all the whole syndrome boiling into dysregulation of our metabolic system. And coupled with that, the rising trend of obesity. We have about 18 to 20% of our population which is overweight, and many of them could be obese with a BMI more than, that is the body mass index, more than 26. So globally, we saw that the non-communicable diseases in 2012, they caused 68% of all deaths. That comprises something like 38 million, up from 60% in 2020, in 2000. So about half of them were under 70 years, and many of them were women. So the point I'm trying to make is that no one ever imagined that the pendulum of disease paradigm will swing in the opposite direction until the first case of SARS coronavirus 2 was reported in December 19 in Wuhan, and then in India reported on 30th January 2020 from Kerala. So immediately there was a flurry of activity, and all organs of the government immediately responded by a slew of measures to suppress the transmission of virus and keep the case fatality rate below 1%. However, despite all public health measures like early lockdown on 22nd March, ramping up the testing facilities from 1 lab to 112 laboratories, contact tracing and isolation of positive cases, we have not been able to flatten the curve. And the cases continue to rise exponentially, and this is also attributable to increased testing. So until recently, we had something like nearly 30,000 new cases reported in 24 hours, which is very, very high. But this is pretty much the same condition in most countries around the world, except the one which Professor Sharma mentioned, where they have been able to really break the chain of transmission. And countries like US, UK, they have all been affected with a rising trend. And to add to our views, we are fighting an invisible enemy whose behavior we do not know and which can mutate very fast. So we are also suffering simultaneously at this juncture with a double whammy, in the sense that the virus produces a cytokine storm, which is an uncontrolled inflammatory response in the body of elderly people, especially those suffering from comorbid conditions like hypertension, diabetes, mellitus. And this condition, coupled with low immunity, can result in death. So I will like to touch upon the immunity. I mean, nutrition and immunity, these are the buzzwords today. And we find that from a sociological point of view, I was wondering, our ancestors were tall, strong, and sturdy. So this is like a paradox as we have evolved into a superior race, but we find that we have these issues which are coming up. And one of the reasons that I attribute, to the immunity which is linked to disease. I mean, the only thing as we know today is immunity, which can really save us as long as we do not get a vaccine or drugs to combat the coronavirus. So immunity basically is the state of resistance of organism to invading biotic and abiotic pathogens. And in the, we talk of the new normal, we have the face masks and the sanitation and safe distancing, all that. But our lifestyles over the last centuries have changed. And one example that I would like to highlight here is that some of the food basket, we have started consuming a lot of wheat, rice, and maize. And we have given up our traditional foods like millets. I am specially enamored as a medical scientist. I am specially enamored by the fact that these small seeded grains, there are 9 types of millets. Many of you would know that the government of India has recently pronounced millets as nutri-cereals because they are nutrition. And they have a wonderful profile of amino acids, profile of micronutrients. And you would all be familiar with ragi, which is the finger millet, bajra, which is the pearl millet, and sorghum, jawari. A dietitian or a nutritionist would charge a whopping sum of hefty fee to tell you that you must eat jawari ki roti, so apart from that, you have the little millets, the small millets, the barnyard millet, the kodo millet, and they're all grown in different parts of our country. So millets basically I find as very relevant to this particular time when we are talking of, Ayurveda, various herbs like ashwagandha, giloy, and tulsi, turmeric, all these, to boost our immunity. I would urge you all to reconsider that we kind of look at millets as a powerhouse of nutrition where immune factors, because millets are immunogenic, and to consider including millets into a food plate would be a very nice thing, because all the micronutrients like the type 1 and the type 2 micronutrients, some which can be stored in our bodies, some that we require on a daily basis, and micronutrients like zinc, iron, selenium, copper, they all affect our immunity along with other vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, and vitamin C. So the point I'm trying to make is that though they might not be immune boosters, but certainly they will modulate our immunity as immunomodulators and something which supports our immunity. So this is one practical advice that I wish to, millets have been consumed from times immemorial. 3,000 years ago, we had millets grown, and they were the staple in countries like Africa and India and also China. For that matter, but gradually we moved, with the Green Revolution, we moved over to other grains and we discarded millets from our food basket. So immune system basically is a function of all the cells, the organ, and then it forms a system. So we should avoid using junk foods and ultra processed foods, which are high in salt and sugar, because they directly impinge on our immune status. And the balanced nutrition, the activity, keeping down our stress levels, keeping up, of course, the good stress. The stress could be good as well as bad. So keep out with the bad stress. Take good sleep would certainly give us a very good immune system, which will help us tide over, combat this crisis. So the government was proactive in forging collaboration with industry partners, private hospitals, civil societies, including scientists at ISRO and IIT in the fight and war against COVID. And ever since WHO declared COVID-19 as a pandemic, the entire world was united in its response, be it research of new drugs, vaccines, or the humanitarian aid. And this pandemic has taught us many lessons, particularly our experience of dealing with the epidemics and pandemics in the past centuries is very much relevant from the sociological point of view. So if you look at the history of world, it is intertwined with the impact that infectious diseases have had on populations. We find evidence of smallpox in the old Egyptian mummies something like 3,000 years ago, and Hippocrates wrote about the spread of disease via airs, via water, and places, and made an association with climate, diet, and living conditions. The germ theory in 1500 and the three routes of contagion, that is the direct contact, the fomites, the contagion from distance, that is the airborne infections. All these, pointed out, and there were lots and lots of epidemic, what Dr. Sharma said, the epidemic of plague, syphilis, smallpox, cholera, yellow fever, all these, and our knowledge grew over a period of time with the identification of microorganisms. And of course, we had the discovery of microscope by Leeuwenhoek and the vaccine by Louis Pasteur, which really revolutionized our medical armamentarium. So an appreciation of environment and its relationship to infection is resulted in implementation of broad control measures such as community sanitation, personal hygiene, public health education, and importance of nutrition. So from a sociological perspective, because I need to give you some sense for the emerging and re-emerging infections, and I find that the emergence of microbial threats, and these days we also have the microbial resistance or the multi-drug resistance, which is fast coming up, where be it tuberculosis or be it HIV, we have to shift from the first generation to the second generation, first line of treatment to the second line, which is very expensive. So there are 6 factors I would like to highlight, which could put in perspective from the sociological point of view. First is the human demographics and behavior. The second is technical and industry. The third, I would say, would be economic development and land use. And international travel Certainly, travel and commerce, it contributes hugely to the increase of transmission rates of the infection. Apart from this, as I said, the microbial adaptation and change and breakdown of the public health measures. So all these need to be put into perspective. And as above, we do not have a clue whether the coronavirus appeared from animal or human population, but what we do know that there is a human-to-human transmission, and therefore it becomes very, very important to break this change. I would like to conclude by saying that we had many scientists and others who were really working right from the time that Ebola, which we were able to control in a geographical area and did not have it spread as a pandemic. Similarly, we need to have measures in a new global order, which the Secretary General of UN, Antonio Guterres, has expressed that a new global deal must be based on a fair globalization, the rights and dignity of every human being, living in balance with nature, respect for the rights of future generation, and success measured in human rather than economic terms. So, as you know, COVID-19 has been a great leveler, whether it be the rich or the poor, whether it be, people in any part of the world. We are all affected by this pandemic, and this is a human tragedy, which, as has been pointed out earlier by the Chancellor, has also created an opportunity to build a more equal and sustainable world. So there is a need to create a powerful platform combining the strength of scientific progress and social innovation for a world which is free from hunger, and there is health for all. I would summarize this in this way, that if we are able to build up this equitable society where people do consider taking up the traditional values, blending in the cutting edge technology, the modern science, where this would provide a world which is safe to live in, just like we are cohabiting this world with nature. You would all agree that all these things will really give us a new world order, and I do believe that we will win this war and emerge as a more powerful society, and with international collaboration and cooperation. Teaming up is very essential. We all have to work together. We have to raise the standard, the living standard, the hygiene, sanitation of the impoverished and the people at the bottom of the pyramid, and make everybody aware and conscious of the challenges that we face, and together we shall win the war. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhandari. It's a wonderful and comprehensive presentation on medical and social aspects both all together. And you have dealt extensively on the issues, the problems before us, the problems we had, and how these problems could be overcome. And it is true, you have rightly pointed out that it is a great leveler for the humanity as far as this is concerned. It's a great learning experience for all of us. And I'm sure that our lifestyle change and our really shift from the traditional, our normal habits of taking traditional foods to ultra processed foods, And all these things have really affected a lot as far as we are concerned. And we have to learn to make a sustainable world. And this you have very amply and wonderfully highlighted. Thank you very much, Dr. Bhandari, for your illuminating presentation. Now we have with us our great friend, very learned scholar, Professor Abdul Manan. Welcome, sir, here today. And he is well known to all. He was the former chairman of UGC, and he was the former vice chancellor of Chittagong University, and so many hats to his credit. And I don't want to speak all these things by himself. He is known to all of, by name, he is known to everybody. And I'm sure that Professor Mannan's presentation will really give us a new thinking and new direction as far as the issue of this pandemic and is concerned, the issue of the resurgence of this pandemic is concerned. Well, Professor Mannan, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was having problem with the net and the video and the audio. Good morning from Dhaka, and it is a rainy morning today, and since last 24 hours, we have had a continuous rainfall in many parts of the country. I would like to first thank the University of Science and Technology in Meghalaya for organizing such a wonderful and time-befitting conference where many renowned scholars from India and outside India has come together to share some of their views on the present situation, the current situation, which was titled COVID-19 Emergence and Resurgence of Communicable Disease from Social Sciences Perspective. As one of our early speakers, and today we have quite a few scholars who have had, illustrious past and research and academic affairs. One of our scholars who spoke today, when you talk about social science, it is not one area or one subject or one science we're talking about. We are talking about many different aspects of social science. We are talking about economy, we are talking about sociology, we are talking about politics, we are talking about political science, and many such things. So we have had an experience, not we actually, our first generation have had an experience of such pandemics. The last one, when you say pandemic, the last one was the Spanish flu. But whatever, whether it was pandemic or it was an epidemic, we did not have something like we are witnessing today, which has become a global issue and which has become a global problem for all countries. Perhaps today, I think approximately 215 or 216 countries are affected by this pandemic. So we were talking about for last couple of decades, we have been talking about globalization. Whenever we talked about globalization, we talked about globalization of goods, services, capital, technology, human being. But today we are talking about globalization of a disease. It has crossed from China to Europe to America to Asia, and Bangladesh has received its share of this pandemic. It started in the beginning of March, and the first cases of this pandemic or this COVID-19, as a matter of fact, came from Italy, when we had a plane load of people who came back from Italy because they lost their job, they lost their earning, and they were primarily, on the street. So they had to be rescued, and it was about 250 of them. And we were unaware of the, seriousness or of the nature of this pandemic. So our system was not ready. Let me confess, the system was not ready. The airports were not ready. The healthcare system was not ready. Government to some extent was not ready. How bad it will be. So when the first plane load of people were asked to go into a quarantine near the airport, there is a Hajj camp, the camps made for the pilgrims going to Mecca for Hajj every year. It was empty. It can take in approximately 1,500 Hajis at one given time. So they were asked to be there quarantine for screening, and they refused, and there were some, untoward incidents. But finally, the government had to yield to them, and they were allowed to go without being screened. So it is believed that they were the first one who carried the virus from Italy to Bangladesh. Maybe it would have come, definitely it would have come to Bangladesh maybe a few weeks later, but it came earlier. So till today, the reaction, the government of Bangladesh were very quick. It was quick enough to get back on its feet and try to understand what was going on and what can be done. And with the leadership of our Prime Minister, she single-handedly took care of the situation, got into the seat and started to make arrangements for healthcare, set up testing centers and all these things. But what I'm saying is not Bangladesh, not India, globally now this has become a problem. We talk about countries like Bangladesh, India, which has a heavy density of population. As we talk about contagious disease, communicable disease, we must also consider the density of people, density of population. I was doing some groundwork for a write-up, so I was trying to find out the density of population of some of the countries which were hard hit. In the recent times, one of the countries which has been very, very hard hit, it is Brazil. Brazil, Chile, Mexico. These are the three countries in Central America, Latin America, which has been hard hit. And Brazil has just been overwhelmed by the this COVID-19. So the density of population in all this, let us say Brazil, is about 25 per square kilometer, 25 per square kilometer. Coming back from Brazil to India, according to the latest World Bank report, it is about 455 or 450. Now, coming back to Bangladesh, the density of population in Bangladesh is 1,240. And the world's most densely populated city is Dhaka, which has a population of 47,400 per square kilometer. So whenever we say social distancing, it practically becomes impossible. The government has tried its best to enforce the social distancing, but people, they have to go out for their living. Government initially gave them lots of help, lots of assistance in terms of delivering food to their homes by our defense forces, by the police forces, by volunteer organizations, by different institutions, by the students. They delivered food, cooked food, not cooked food to every home in the low-income areas. But the reality is, it is very difficult to keep people at home and ask them not to go out. Food will be delivered, but people do go out, people do communicate, and it is practically impossible to maintain the social distancing in a crowded city like Dhaka or Calcutta or Delhi or New York or all these major cities in the world. So we did have a problem. These are problems that are practically unavoidable. Whatever we may say, it is unavoidable. You can practice social distancing in some countries, but not here. Secondly, it is the ignorance of the people. Our people, Bangladesh, I would like to single out Bangladesh, has been a role model to many developed countries for disaster management. We do have this part of the world, Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, this part of the world do have regular visits of different kinds of natural disasters, like cyclonic storms, like floods. Right now we are having a flood in Bangladesh, earthquakes, so tsunamis. So this is not something new. And over past 50, 60 years or so, Bangladesh has learned how to deal with these disasters. So many international bodies, organizations, even America has acknowledged that Bangladesh has become a role model in disaster management. So we took this pandemic something like a disaster, but this disaster is quite different from a natural disaster. This disaster is, it's caused by a virus which is not even, you cannot even see the virus in real terms. So the disaster has, this pandemic has changed our lifestyle. And this is where the sociology comes in. This is where the social sciences come in. Like myself, I've been locked in my house since 22nd of March. I have not gone out of my house. So in my house, we are only 4 people. As a matter of fact, we were only 2 people, but my daughter and her husband came to live with us. So we now have 4 people. So it is from morning till evening, every day, every week. And for last few months, it is 4 people. We see each other's face and we interact. So there is no outside interaction. We do have our classes, it's online, and students have taken it very, very sportively, and attendance in the classes are near 100%, and we are very happy with it. But what is happening is we don't have any visitors at our home because we say the building doesn't allow any outsiders to come in. The building doesn't allow any outsiders to come in. So ignorance is one part of the game. The other thing is the awareness among the people. The common people, they are not very convinced that if you contact with each other, the disease will pass from you to them. It is very difficult to make them understand that you need to have a social distancing. A mask, government has continuously said, if you are not wearing a mask, you can be fined on the street. People do wear masks, but they're not in the proper place. They do cover sometimes only the nose, or in most of the cases I can see from my building, the street down below, at least 50% of the people are wearing their mask under their chin. So that is not what we expected. So, but many things have happened. This is again social science. Among this new normal, we have seen emergence of some business. Some housewives have started, business of home delivery of cooked food, home cooked food. You could just order them online, and they will deliver your meals, your lunch, your dinner, or even in some cases, these ladies have started, supplying breakfast, because some of these ladies were not working, or some of these ladies were working in, let us say, in schools. Now many of them have lost their job. Many of them have lost their job. So these are some of the problems that we need to encounter. The government has announced that whoever has lost their job, they will be given a job. Government will try its best to give them the job. But again, the good news, one good news is yesterday, the Oxford University has said they have made a breakthrough in coming out with the vaccine. And the other good news is any country whose per capita income is less than $1,800 US, they will get the vaccine free. We are very lucky that we are little below $1,800 US. I think we are, $1,790 US. So we are supposed to get the this vaccine free. Now, unfortunately, another thing which should not have happened but has happened, some people, some mischievous people have made capital out of this and capitalized this pandemic. And what they have done is they have started, some of them have started dishing out, selling, corona, false, fake corona, negative certificates, so that this person doesn't have a corona without even proper testing. So, but government has clamped down on them. They've arrested many of them. The government has closed down many of the hospitals. So since last 1 week or so, it seems that the number of cases reported is a little bit going down. It's tapered, it's now going down. But the death keeps on, every day death keeps on, more or less it is same. Yesterday it was 50, yesterday it was 50. Today still we have the news break at around 2:30 when the health ministry gives out the statistics or the data. So Another thing that has happened, this is from the social science point of view, countries have learned to come together, and researchers have gone back to their labs trying to find out the solution to this pandemic. And I'm sure many of the things that we did not practice earlier now will become part of our life whenever life becomes normal. I find our Honorable Chancellor, Mr. Mabul Haq, under these pressing circumstances in the situation, he and his colleagues are very, very energetic and very, very persuasive in bringing people together for conference and seminars like this. So this is what universities should be doing. All universities should be doing. I would like to thank Mr. Barul Lashkar, who put together this conference with quite a few, with the assistance of quite a few universities and institutions. And considering the location of the Guwahati, the University of USTM, University of Science and Technology in Meghalaya, they are doing a wonderful job, because you must not forget it is a university which is tucked in a northeastern corner of India, and the other universities in India, some of them are also doing similar things. Universities in Bangladesh are also doing similar things. They're also jointly collaborating in putting together similar what you call conferences and seminars. So the thing is that now this pandemic has taught us many different lessons. That first thing is, whatever a particular country, in this case China, may not always be taken on its face value. As some of us said, China said the pandemic, they have lost only not very big, huge number of lives. People would not take it. One of our learned speakers said about the wet market. It was initially believed it came from the wet market. Now it seems there is also a belief that it came from a Chinese laboratory in Wuhan. So which is true and which is not only the Chinese can tell us. I cannot tell, you cannot tell for sure whether this is true or the other one is true. But the truth is, this has happened, this has taken its toll, and till recently, more than 600,000 people died around the world. More than, and now in our country, one of the major, I think, concern is the death of the doctors, the doctors. So, so I would like to again thank all of you for being with us and asking me to come. And I've enjoyed the speech, especially given by our chief guest, who I think lives currently in Hong Kong. He's in a better place. So some places like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Vietnam has shown that they can do something better than many of us, than in a powerful country like the United States. The US is a very strange country. Day before yesterday, in Ohio, Columbus, there was a big demonstration.
No, I want to
telling people that asking the government that they should stop this, according to them, the nonsense of social distancing, or asking them not to ask them to wear masks. So this has happened, and this has been something promoted by no less than a person like the US President Donald Trump. He said, "I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to ask anybody to wear a mask." So now different people have different aspects, different outlooks, and different way of looking at the same thing. But at the end of the day, we want to get back to the normal life that we had in January, in December. So thank you very much, Mr. Barulhaq, Mr. The Chancellor, Mr. Mabul Haq. I enjoyed the speeches, the discussion of all of you. Thank you very much from Dhaka, from Bangladesh.
Thank you very much, for your nice presentation and the responses of Bangladesh to the present COVID-19 pandemic vis-a-vis some of the countries in the rest of the world. And this is a learning experience, that how highly dense city could respond to this COVID-19 in a very pragmatic way. This is something good news for us, and I'm indeed delighted to I'm sure all of you have enjoyed his presentation. Now we will go to Professor P.C. Joshi. I think he's here. Joshi is not in the screen.
He was before, he was here earlier.
Huh?
He was earlier, Professor
He was
Joshi.
He was earlier here because now it is his turn as per agenda. Yes, Professor Dr. Lashkar, what do I do? Shall I move on to the next and Professor Joshi will join? Yeah, I think Professor Joshi will, when he joins, we'll start his keynote address. Now, let me move on to Dr. Sambit Mollik, and he will be, now Professor T.G. Sitalaman was supposed to speak, but somehow he has been replaced by Professor Sambit Mollik, Associate Professor, IIT Guwahati. I request Professor Mollik to make his presentation.
We cannot hear him. He has to, yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
sir, you are.
Okay, thank you. I sincerely apologize that our director had a meeting at 11:45, and as I told him that he had to deliver his address at 11:10. He had to leave. Um, uh, Esteemed delegates and participants of this international online conference on COVID-19, Emergence and Resurgence of Communicable Diseases from Social Sciences Perspectives. On behalf of the organizing committee, on behalf of the Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati, and in particularly the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Guwahati, and on my personal behalf, I would like to welcome all of you to this conference. I'm sure we all will learn and at the same time unlearn certain things precisely because of the situation that we are put in today. It is also not, people very often say that this is not normal, this is new normal. But you look at Kuhn's work, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, you find that norms keep on changing. Norms are not static. Norms are pretty dynamic. And when norms become dynamic, and if the existing model, paradigm will not be adequate, sufficient to address our problems, then we must look at some kind of revolutionary practices in such pandemic situations. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Malik. And it's nice to connect with IIT because although our director could not join, you have kept the connection, and for that, thank you very much. Now, I think Professor Joshi is here. If he's not here, then we'll go to Professor Abdul Mateen.
No, sir, actually, Professor Joshi.
Oh, then Professor Joshi has made a recorded message. I think it will be presented. Okay. Thereafter, then after Professor Mateen, we will go to you. Please bear with us for a moment and it will be presented.
That's fine. I just wanted to take it to my office so I can work and watch this. Okay.
Professor Midul Hazarika, sir, due to some technical issues, we will be playing Professor Joshi's video a bit later, sir. Please request you to kindly continue with Professor Abdul Mateen, sir.
Well, thank you. Professor Abdul Mateen, you are welcome. And let me introduce Professor Mateen. He is the president of Indian Society. He's the president, Flair, Delhi, India. He's a former chairperson of Department of Sociology, Aligarh Muslim University, and visiting professor, Department of Sociology, USTM. Well, welcome, Professor Mateen, and over to you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Because of low speed bandwidth and traffic congestion, I'm not using the video, but I hope that I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
I
Okay.
can hear you also in Hong Kong.
Janab Mohibul Haq Sahab, Honorable Chancellor of the USTM, Professor Metabolic Hazarika, Vice Chancellor USTM, Professor Shailendra Sharma, an old friend of mine from University of San Francisco, USA, Dr. Raj Bhandari, associated with Niti Aayog, Professor Abdul Mannan, former chairman UGC Bangladesh, Professor PC Joshi, a very old friend of mine, now PVC of University of Delhi, Professor TG Sitha Rama, Director IIT Guwahati, Professor Baharul Islam Laskar, convener of the international webinar, and Dr. Nejabi Rahma, Deputy Director ERDF Guwahati. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to everyone. It's a matter of great honor and privilege for me to have association with this international webinar on COVID-19, Emergence and Resurgence of Communicable Diseases from Social Science Perspective, organized by USTM, in which more than 160 papers, I understand, from universities and research centers of excellence, and over 700 participants are registered for 2 days international webinar. It is very well organized under the leadership of the USTM team. My predecessors have made my task quite easy. It will be a futile exercise at this juncture. In an absence of adequate data and research, whether COVID-19 originated and spread from the laboratory of China as unsuccessful control in the ongoing experiment, or from the visitors of the USA, Europe, as accusation and counter accusations are repeated by both the parties. It is baffling, puzzling, and cloudy for a lay person like me. Suffice it to say that it originated from Hunan province of China and spread it to Italy, Spain, other parts of Europe, including Germany, France, UK, and also in USA. And as a matter of fact, it has spread all over the world, covering almost all over 200, almost more than 210 countries located in all the continents. As a social scientist, my way of looking at the COVID-19, unlike disease specialists, is not its novelty and mode of operandus in attacking human beings and the consequent disasters in an unprecedented way. Not that this dimension is less important, but simply because of my lack of competence. My main concern with the COVID-19 is its implications on intensification of globalization, as some of my previous speakers have pointed out, and consequent digitalization and informationalism. So I highlight on the technological dimension of COVID-19. My task has been made easy by Professor Joshi's main argument, which will be read later, that COVID-19 should be understood from temporal dimension, as well as anthropological perspective of evolution of human societies from simple to complex, and especially initial way of living in a small band herd consisting of 20 to 30%. In agreement with Professor Joshi, let me move further and add that one may look upon COVID-19 within the framework of the theory of complexity, which advocates A small event can make a tremendous impact at the massive scale in an era of globalization and informationalism. Globalization theory emerged, we all know, as a result of developments and changes both in the world as a whole and in academia. Globalization can be analyzed culturally, economically, politically, and institutionally. A concern for homogenization, heterogenization cuts across work in all these areas. Central to the work of Anthony Giddens on globalization is losing control over the juggernaut of modernity and creating a runaway world. Beck sees hope in globality with the decline of the nation state and the emergence of transnational organizations and possibly a transnational state. To Bauman, what defines the global world is a space war between those who have and those who do not have mobility. However, even those with mobility face grave problems. Cultural theories of globalization may be divided into three paradigms: cultural differentialism, cultural convergence, and cultural hybridization. Informationalism in an era of globalization, at the heart of Manuel Cass's analysis, what he calls the information technology paradigm with 5 basic characteristics, may be considered as a crucial perspective for COVID-19 analysis in pursuit of understanding bacteria and virus spreading pandemic in the history of mankind, be it plague of Justinian of 541-42 AD, stemming from Yersinia pestis bacteria from rats and fleas, causing death toll of 200 million, or a smallpox outbreak of 1520 AD from Variola major virus, causing 56 million deaths, or even the third plague of 1885 from Yersinia pestis bacteria spread through rats and fleas, causing 12 million deaths in India and China, and so on and so forth. The list is too long. While discerning a pattern and learning lessons from history, one is also reminded of Ibn Sina of the 11th century Bukhara, Iran, who is considered as the father of modern medicine, especially because of his contribution of the book entitled Al-Qanun, Canon of Medicines, in 5 volumes, where medicine, philosophy, and theology have been well integrated. I have referred Ibn Sina not because of his 450 books written on science, medicine, and allied disciplines, out of which only 240 books are available and rest lost, but primarily because of his prescription of A, quarantine, B, social distancing, and C, self-isolation as preventive measures for pandemics were well received during the medieval times. My main argument is that world during pre-COVID-19 era was undergoing the process of globalization and digitalization, not only in the domains of economy and society, but even in polity. Digitization is an outcome of informationalism. Informationalism is an outcome of digital revolution during the second half of the 20th century. The main reason for digital revolution is the discovery and its use of psi material, which has become a source of general purpose technology. This GPT is embedded in our everyday life in an unprecedented manner, unlike GPTs prior to its discoveries and utilization. The way Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and now during COVID-19 era, Zoom, GeoMeet, and its competitors, Google Meet, Google Classroom, Skype, are becoming household use, not only in the middle class individuals, but in the developed countries, but even in the slum of Paris and Tokyo, including Mumbai slum of Dharavi. These products and services are in use not only in the USA, Japan, China, Germany, France, UK, Singapore, but also in sub-Saharan African countries or Latin American countries. Digitalization is going to shape and reshape countries of the world in many ways. This ongoing process, which was already in existence all over the world, is getting intensified in its scale, which I call digitalization. There are many examples of digitalization, for example, robotization. By that I mean large-scale use of robots, not only in industries, but also in hospitals for treating patients. replacing the job of doctors and nurses for disease in which doctors and nurses prefer to keep safe distance from the patients. Even for hospital cleanings, traditional human cleaners are replaced by robot cleaner. This trend is visible in UK, Germany, USA, and perhaps desirable even for a country like India, where there is abundance of human resources. This process of digitalization may raise ethical questions due to digital divide, social exclusion, and surveillance. Nonetheless, its usefulness and perhaps its necessity at a time of maintaining physical distance may be argued for its expansion in initially few selected services sectors cannot be undermined. Artificial intelligence and machine learning for big data processing, digital meetings, business, academic, or social meetings, including today's academic meeting, so on and so forth, are some of the examples we need to notice and fairly acknowledge and assess its presence. The tendency of its expansion is logical, and it will grow slowly but firmly due to greed in firms and industries in pursuit of profit in the name of efficiency and optimization due to competitive world. This competition is visible between two superpowers, with USA at the one hand and China on the other hand. While world wars, first and second, have been instrumental in shifting hegemonic power from UK to the USA, who knows that this epidemic to pandemic of COVID-19 virus war may lead to shift of power from north, that is USA, to somewhere in the south, or from the Arctic to somewhere in the Asian Pacific. From anthropological perspective, as outlined by Professor Joshi, Professor Shailendra, uh, others on globalization, informationalism perspectives has hinted and outlined above in brief, data and research findings may be critically examined and arrived at any meaningful insights of the present pandemic and its cause-effect relationships by discerning patterns. Once again, I am thankful to the USTM team to include me in this novel attempt in unraveling and getting insights from social science perspectives for understanding COVID-19. I do hope that after the webinar, these valuable contributions will be made available to the wider audience by its publication in the form of books. If so, I'm willing to volunteer my services in this endeavor. Thank you once again. Thank you, Dr. Hazar.
Professor Mateen. It is a pleasure that you have highlighted the technological dimension and the consequence of intensive globalization. And obviously, it's a fact that the world was in isolation in the past. Then mobility increased. With the increase in mobility, what happened? We had the globalization concept has come. We have moved from one place to another. As you have said, convergence of culture, the cultural hybridization, all these things have happened, and this definitely brought about something new, but then at the same time, it brought about the dangers of such pandemic. And thank you very much for amply highlighting all the issues. And now, the Professor P.C. Joshi's presentation has some technical fault, and that's why we are going to present in the valedictory session. And now it's the end of this presentation. Now, basically, what I feel that the social issues are very, very important for us. Technological era, this is technological age. It is the human who will run all these issues. The technology will be controlled by human being. As a human being will be controlling the technology, this the human being will form the society. It is very important that social outlook into the entire issue of technological developments. And therefore, it's a social scientist will have to play a very important role in the days to come. And we should remember that the social science can really craft appropriate public health responses. It is, they can do it and develop solution to the epidemic impacts and improve understanding of why epidemic has occurred. And this social scientists can do once this is done, definitely technology is important for all of us, but technology is driven by the society. Technology is driven by the humanity. And therefore, it is very important that the technology and society should converge in a manner so that we can go hand in hand. And we cannot really ignore the thinking of the common people. And this is also very important for the society. And I'm sure that all these presentations were so illuminating for all of us. Each one of you made a presentation from the different perspective. Each perspective has its own value. And all these values together only make things much better. I must mention that Mr. Bahadul Lashkar, who has brought all of you together, he deserves very special appreciation from my side. And Lashkar has brought all of them together. I thought of speaking about him at the last for the one simple reason that the people will remember his name and go. Not that if I talk in the beginning, then his name will be lost and go into oblivion. And that's why I thought of talking about him. And they brought all of you together, and bringing you together help us to know a lot about the many aspects of the present problem. And indeed, I am thankful to all of you. I am nobody as compared to all of you scholars. I am a very humble person with small fry, and I am a student of all of you. I am a student. I have noted down all the relevant points which will help me to understand the issues much better in future. Now it is the time to go for formal vote of thanks by the Bahadul Lashkar. I over to Professor Lashkar.
We would now like
A very, very good morning, everyone. So on behalf of the University of Science and Technology, ERD Foundation, and our co-organizers, convey our gratitude and thanks to all the participants, all the members, all the stakeholders, especially Professor Shailendra Sharma, who has acted as the chief guest of the event, Professor Raj Bandari, who as guest of honor, then Professor P.C. Joshi from Delhi University, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university, as a keynote speaker, then Dr. Sambit Malik from IIT Guwahati in place of Dr. Sitaram, Director IIT, then Professor Abdin, President Player and former Chairperson of Sociology Department of AMU, and other dignitaries present in the event. So we are thankful to all, and at the same time we are also thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Chancellor Sir, for all the encouragement, all the support provided to us, and our technical team and the organizing committee, and important stakeholders from all the co-organizing institutions in whatever way they have contributed, and especially not last but least all the paper presenters and participants who have overwhelmingly responded to our call and submitted paper. We have around 1,000 participants and more than around 200 paper presenters, which will be over 10 technical sessions followed by this inaugural session. And in the same time, I thank our IT team and to all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you from the organizers.
Thank you so much. Hello. Yes, thank you so much, Professor Lashkar. We are coming to the end of the inauguration. We would now welcome all the attendants to kindly join us after the break. We shall be starting the technical session, two parallel sessions, technical sessions simultaneously. The links are sent to the participants. We shall be joining you all at 1 p.m. today. Thank you. Good day.
Thank you. Thank you.